Greetings, comrades. I am Admiral Andre. And what do you think of our new intro? I thought about doing something like this a while ago, but actually for a career it is the perfect thing to do. So we have the highlights from the previous episode at the beginning of every new episode. So anyway, also that song, it's such an interesting thing. It's actually called Gone Trekking. I got it years ago. I bought the actual license for it from a Jewelbeat website, I think is the name. And it was exactly with this kind of thing in mind, because I thought it actually fits the Kerbals so well. So let's use it for them. So anyway, comrades, we are here with our plethora. I'm always now going to refer to a lot of science as a plethora of science. And we do have a plethora right now. So let's begin to use that. And yes, let's see. So we have 121.5, so we can unlock quite a few things here. I know we're skipping ahead a little bit because we have not maximized the technology we already have. We've never even used the liquid fuel engine. But I think going just further down the basic science route is not a bad idea. So we'll invest in that and of course pay the huge sum of money, well, relatively anyway, to the subcontractors. And so we can't get any one of these three, so we have to look here. Probably general rocketry is going to be a good idea, so get that one. And stability, I think this is good. We don't want to necessarily go too far ahead in a single branch while neglecting the others, so I think let's do that. And do we have enough? No. So that's where we stop for now. Also, we don't want to go too fast. This is not a race or any kind of attempt to maximize the science that we get. This is purely an an enjoyable career type of playthrough, not to maximize anything. So let's see. Next step. We have to just have a look at our contracts, and there's our old friend Jean again saying, where have we been yesterday? But we are back again. So our objective now, I think the most natural one is to orbit Kerbin. I'm going to take this contract, but instead of doing it with an actual Kerbal, I think we're going to try using the satellite that we just unlocked. Then is there anything that goes naturally together with that? Test it. These are the difficult ones because you have to guess when you take this kind of contract whether those parameters are practical, if you can actually do them. So by that speed, by that altitude, it is possible, but how do we test that kind of drogue chute? Maybe on the way back, but we're not really coming back if we're doing this right. No, we'll skip that one. Or we can take it for the future. There is an escape trajectory, but that's now not what we want to do and what we can do at the moment. Escape trajectory again, they're a little bit too ambitious here. That's why they're 2 stars at the moment. I think that does change as well. Over time, obviously, these kind of 2-star missions will be much easier in the future. So I guess they get downgraded to a 1-star at some point. Test the decoupler splashdown. We can do that certainly, I guess. But I think let's just focus on this one contract for the moment. So we're of course going to just start back in the VAB. And I just also want to save the rocket that we used last time, the Gladius. Because that was just the whole mission, again like Mercury 1 and so on. But in this case we want to save all the rockets that we use. So I'm going to do this in the sub-assemblies of course. And we'll take it with the decoupler. And I will call this. Now I was thinking also we need some kind of system here that will keep alphabetical track of these things. So possibly just a number 1 or even 001. And this will be... Although again we don't need to do this because we can use the description for that. Anyway, this is the Javelin 1A. And this again comes from the whole Saturn V and also the Titan rockets and all of that, like the Titan 3C. So we are going to keep using that kind of convention. So the next variant of this will be the Javelin 1B and so forth. So we'll save that, but first we'll give the description. 3-stage solid suborbital rocket. So this is more of a sounding kind of rocket, but anyway, it worked out quite well. And I have to say, this was quite a lucky mission that we had last time, because I tried this again. I started a new career for myself afterwards, and I did a similar mission to this, and I used 4 solid fuel rocket stages there, and the re-entry was just so, imbalanced that the capsule flipped over and it just kept speeding up again until it hit the ground, because I could never deploy the parachute. And that's why today we really have to focus on adding a heat shield to this. But that's why we did the experiment last time, where we could see that we now actually experience re-entry heating. So that's again where the real role play comes in, because we don't know these things. We're discovering them for the first time. So I think for this I will say new. We want to not save anything. We want a completely new save, and we are going to start with the Stay Putnik today. And I think it's more appropriate in a way to do this for the first orbital mission. Obviously the Kerbals like to send actual crew into space, and I can totally understand why, because it's more fun that way. But we now know that Kerbals can survive for a short period of time in space. That was obviously a suborbital test that we did. But we don't really understand the full implications of going into a full orbit and staying there for a little while, in terms of radiation and all of that kind of effect. So we want to test it on small living organisms. And that is why we have a convenient Science Junior kit here. Now, this is obviously not going to be my best creation, because we don't have all the nice shapes that I would like to use, the various structural elements and all of that. So it's just literally going to have to be slapped onto that. So yes, one of those things, comrades, but it's our first effort, right? So let me just have a sip of tea here before I continue. Right, so now that we've said that, let's grab just a move tool here. I just want to see we don't have any control. That will make it difficult, but we can still pull it off without SAS. At least I hope so, but anyway. Now again here, one of the things that irks me greatly is when you place a thing like that and it sort of seems to be floating in the air there. In this case it's not really that bad, because it does go into it right down there. But I do also, oh dear, we also see we have this kind of nodule on the top to deal with. So just like that, so at least it looks nice, even though it's kind of a strange shape here. Anyway, so the next thing we do want is, we've done some of the science already in space, so we're not going to get new data from that. I actually just want to go and have a look under the science. This is a convenient thing in space. Space near Kerbal. Now this says no crew report. That was obviously because we didn't have the space for that. No temperature scan, no pressure scan, no mystery goo scan. That's interesting, didn't we do that? That's odd. Space near Kerbal. Anyway, I think we might still add these experiments, even if we actually did do them. So of course we want to duplicate that, but not in a way that clips too much. So I think we'll have to move this down a little. Like that. And then we also want the thermometer on the one side. And the, whoops, pressure barometer on the other. Right, now there's another perfect example where the thermometer is literally floating in the air. This simply will not do, not for me. You know that by now. So I want to put it so it actually looks like it's attached to something. Like that. And then I think this is basically our construction here. We don't necessarily need an antenna for this because this will be in low orbit. But we can of course just add one, in a way kind of simulating Sputnik 1 perhaps, in a very rough kind of way. We just want those not to clip into the experiment payload there. So that'll work. I think I also would like to move them in a little. Like that. And then of course I don't have action groups, so we're going to have to do this manually. But that works, you know, it's the kind of idea at least reminiscent of Stayputnik or Sputnik. And then of course it has a lot of extra science. So this is also something you can expect from this career playthrough, comrades. I'm not going to pre-build or speed up the building process or the launch. You know me by now. We do these things together. You can happily skip ahead in the video if you don't want to see it. We're not going to use the engineering system yet. We still have no clue about the specifics of orbital mechanics in that sense. We don't need a parachute. We certainly can put extra batteries on because we do not have solar panels yet. I just need to think of a way to do this so that it actually looks semi-decent here. Now, how on earth could we do this? Let's see, or how on Kerbal, I should say. It's gonna clip either way. I could put it here, but you know, I think I'll do this. I'll put 4 of them here because we'll need to beam back some of the data here. And I'll just move it in. Now this is clipping of course, but this is a probe core, so we're just enhancing its battery storage capability. So I'm perfectly fine with that. Now let's get to the actual rocket stage. Do we want to separate the payload from the rocket? We will definitely want that, but one of the things I'd like to focus on, even if it's only a little bit later, is mitigating against excess debris in space. And I think probably in the next episode or one of the future ones, I want to do a kind of discussion about real life debris mitigation standards. It's almost a way of learning a little bit about that while we're playing KSP. So just an interesting little side note. We can try and implement some of those principles in our playthrough. But in the, of course, the early satellites, that was not present yet, so we can ignore it for now. Now we do want a fuel tank here, liquid fuel tank, to control the orbital insertion more accurately. I'll stick to the swivel, of course, that's our old friend here. Now let's just see, for that we get 968 meters. Now this is of course at sea level, so that's 1.2 kilometers. Now I think I can just add more here. Just keep maximizing this and use the white paint on this. So that gives us a thrust to weight ratio still of 3.22, which is still way too much, so we can just keep adding more to this. Again, it's not going to be the most elegant rocket. So 2 kilometers, we need about 3.8 or something around that figure. Now I'm just thinking, can we possibly get away with using the Javelin 1A as the early stage here, or the early stages? Now of course if you use a sub-assembly, you're going to have the problem of integrating your stages here into the flight computer, as it were. So of course our first stage, we just would have to increase the thrust limiter to maximum. That's fine. But actually no, we don't even need to do this, because we have a much better, I want to do a kind of hybrid solid liquid fuel rocket. So we'll use the hammer for this. And did I have a decoupler there? Yes. Then we can reduce the thrust. That's fine, and then use another. So we can still argue that this is the same rocket family as the Javelin, because it still uses 2 solid fueled stages, and then it is added onto that a liquid fueled stage for the actual orbital insertion. That's already fine. So where do we end now? 3.4. And in terms of weight, we can't add much more. I think we'll give it a go. We're probably not going to make it with this. I can add another stage there, or a bit more fuel. This is sea level again though, so at the end of the day, when we fire the upper stage, it will get us another 600 instead of just 2600. So I think we might make this, maybe. Again, we don't have to be too precise. It is an experimental rocket, so we'll go with that, and we'll also use the new winglets. Like that. And now I just want to have a look at this. So for this we will say, let's just put this into the sub-assembly. Alt left click, and I will call this should this still be the Javelin 1? I don't think so, because we're using a different initial stage, the larger Thud rocket. So I think this will be Javelin 2A, or we should probably use Roman numerals, 2A, and this will be, well, we'll leave the description for now because we don't know what it will be yet. It can be a failure, so anyway, I think this will do. This will be quite a bit of a challenge, especially with these in stages right here. Maybe I'll put some more fins on. This might complicate things even further. Anyway, so what are we going to call the probes that we use around Kerbal? And if you hear the birds outside again, it's breeding season for the Hadida, not obviously in KSP, in real life here in South Africa. This is the most painful thing to experience. The Hadida is the loudest bird in Africa, and I'll put a picture on the screen now. And you can look that up if you want. They make this most horrifying sound, and especially now that it's breeding season. But anyway, so if you do hear that, you'll know why, the context for that. Anyway, so the satellite, let's just see. Pathfinder is a good possible name. Observer, Horizon, Icarus, Spectator, Gladius we already used for the capsule, Visitor, Proximo. I think this will be a Proximo satellite, just because it is in close proximity to Kerbal itself, so this makes kind of sense. Proximo 1, save and launch again from the desert. Most of our operations, and I see we have a problem here, we have too many parts, so I'll put 3 fins on this stage. Most of our rockets are still, all of our rockets are still being launched from the desert, because it's still experimental, and if we do crash there, it's fine, there's no population to kill, so it's safer that way. Launch. Welcome to the simmering desert, comrades. I love the desert in this game. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It just gives you this kind of atmosphere that you really are forlorn at the edges of the world. But anyway, that's getting kind of poetic there. So yes, I want to add also, I have gone mad again, and I've started adding new mods. It's a vicious cycle, comrades, and I can't help myself. But I'm still not adding new parts. That is my absolutely steel iron rule. I will not break for the series. I can't, because I want to keep it stock. But I am using Chatterer, just again so we have some sounds. It's not just silence, especially if you have a crew. And I am also using Realplume. That's it. I looked, and there's a version. It's not quite up to date, but it seems to be working well, so we'll use Realplume. That just adds a little detailing there. And I also use Trajectory trajectories. I did install this previously, but I forgot to mention this. This will just help to show us our re-entry pathway, but this is not relevant at the moment. But just full disclosure, those are the mods that are also there. So we can't put the SAS on. That will make for a fun time. We don't have to turn the throttle up, but I will anyway. So let's check our staging. We should have done this earlier, but anyway. Let's go. 3, 2, 1, and wait. Hold the launch. Just show me the signs here and now. We'll just wait for the data again in space. We don't need to take data in the atmosphere, so we'll just keep it open for that. And 3, 2, 1. Right, we're off. Our early orbital rocket, maybe. We'll see. Now with this kind of thing you have to generally try and... Oh yes, there's no point. This will be a disaster, but I'm not going to revert it just because if it is a disaster it fits, because many of the early rockets were disasters. We don't... Yes, that's the thing. It's not going to help because there's no way to steer at all, because we can't vector the solid fuel nozzle. So we'll just have to go with it for now. Anyway. And there it flips all over the place. So we're going to have to go with a completely different design. Interesting. Well, I can do a material study here, I guess, and transmit that. Of course, all the antennas will break off now, I think. They can't deploy at this point. Ditch that and fire the liquid fuel, but we're spinning completely out of control. So yes, that's that, I guess. Oh yes, there's another mod I added. Yay, another one. Just before I forget, it's not relevant for this now. It's called Safechute, and all that it does is it will take you out of time warp when your parachute deploys, and also 15 meters before you hit the ground. So from now on, when we do a landing with the parachute, I can just fast forward and not have to worry about coming out of time warp manually. And it's quite an amazing little mod. So anyway, here we are, just falling down. Where did we launch from? Oh, right there. Well, we didn't really go anywhere. Fast forward. Let's see if it drops us out of time warp. Obviously we don't have a parachute. No, never mind, we just crash. Right, vessel destroyed. And go to not revert, just take me to the space center. So Proxima 1 was a complete disaster, but it's par for the course. Right, let's see, next one. So we still have 244,000 Kerbal bucks, so we have more than enough. But we're going to have to completely change our approach to rocket design at this point. So we start to see that solid fuel doesn't work so well for this. And I think in that case we're just going to dump this entire stage and put a new one on. Of course, the problem is we're using a lot of different parts now, so we have a strict number here. And this should be, it has to be the swivel, otherwise we can't control the thing. 1.37 is not the greatest, but it will be sufficient. We can add, possibly, we have 4 more parts here, so we can add some exterior boosters. So I think let's try that. This will be the first time we do something like that. Oops, just do it right, and the mass is too great. That's always the thing with the very early part of the game. Still, I'll try it. We'll just reduce some of the fuel. Yes, it'll have to be there. Alright, so that gives us, if we just move everything there, obviously I have to fire the liquid fuel at the same time so we can steer the thing. Thrust to weight of 3.2, which is way too much now. We'll say 1.91, that's fine. And I cannot yet do the auto struts because you can only do that when you actually have struts. So we'll have to just keep it like this, which is fine. And the rest of it is fine as well, so we'll say Proximo 2 now. And I'll save this rocket and the sub-assembly when we come back. Let's just see how it goes first. Right, comrades, here we are again in the desert. So let's throttle up. In this case it would be necessary. And 3, 2, 1, go. So yes, obviously we'll get the readouts here, but we're not really interested too much at the moment. Now we don't have fins, so this is another problem now, but we just want to start turning over a little bit here. The exact orbit is not so important, just as long as it's more or less to the 90. And now it's time to concentrate very heavily. So yes, I'm just trying to keep an eye on this and on the booster thing. When that is empty, I need to ditch that. Drop that. Yikes, yikes, yikes. Come on, come on. No, no, no. Alright, it's a flop as well. I'm not going to wait till it crashes, but Proximo 2 is also a flop. We'll just revert again. Yes, it's a problem. I don't want to upgrade the VAB and the launch pads and all of that yet. We have to make it to orbit without doing that. Can we, though, is the other problem. You know what I think? I think we're going to do something else. We're going to follow the example of Atlas, the Atlas rocket. So in this case we have how many parts left? 4. I might need to take some off here. 2 more. And now we should have 6 left. The weight is not important for this. Just so we add the radial decouplers. And then the fuel tank, so that's already 2 parts there. Just alt click there. And then place this on. So now obviously we have 2 parts left, and that will be 2 new swivel engines. Now of course I can't add parachutes to save them. We don't have the part limit for that, unless we take off some of the things up here, but I don't really want to. So anyway, and here I want to, let's just see, can we not do that yet? Cross feed is not possible at this stage. Pity. And of course that's again because we don't have the fuel lines. Anyway, we'll try this one. Let's just experiment, comrades. That's the fun of the whole thing, especially role playing a little bit. Save that and launch again. Okay, no need for ceremonious countdowns. Let's just go. And that's way too much. So it's the same problem though. We're gonna have the same issue. It's still gonna flip over. But maybe if I really punch it now, we can get out of the thick atmosphere quicker. Although it's becoming a problem. No, same issue. Never mind. Proximo 3 is a disaster again. Now we go to 4. We're gonna get to 59 before this thing works. Anyway, you know, I think we might just have to go the easier route and just upgrade facilities, especially the launch pads. Oh well, let's do that then. Right, so basically all that means is the size of the vessel can be larger, but much more important for us, the weight can also be larger, and we can certainly afford that, so that's a most practical investment. Right, scrap everything. Let's start from scratch. Let's think about this. What I would ideally, but we still need a way to steer the thing, and we don't have that. Unless we just go with a crude capsule again, but I really don't want to. So we have to go with a liquid-fueled rocket. There's no way around that. So for this stage, let's try just 2 initially. How much does that give us? 2000. That's fine. That's basically half of our fuel, or delta V anyway. So now we just drop another one there, decoupler, and it's the same story again. So this will be an all liquid fueled rocket, just out of pure necessity, but I want to see what we can do with solid fuel rockets a little later. We just don't want to gloss over it. Right, for this again we must use the swivel, and that gives us 1.7 with another 2000, and that is in a vacuum of course, so it's not quite as good at sea level. So maybe we will go for the addition of some solid fuel. Of course, part limits are still relevant, but the weight is now much more flexible. So 140 tons, that makes it much easier. So in this case we will just strap on these massive boosters. This is going to be an overkill now. We're compensating for our failures here. And yes, let's see, what does this give us? Just drop that down a little. Bit more than that. 1.81, that's fine. Nothing else we can do. So Proximo 4 is the thing to do. Save again and launch again. You know what we need? We need fins. That's probably where I made the mistake again. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see how this goes. At least there's a little bit of steering. I think we're just going to have to go the easier route and just go straight up as much as possible initially. That's not what I would like to do, but just minimal deviation from the pro grade. So far so good. Oh, don't speak too soon. Don't do that. We're going through max Q every time that this happens. Barely control it, barely. Okay, we're more or less through max Q now. So, okay, it's much safer now. I can start turning it. As soon as we get to the 10s, especially around 15 or so, then it generally reduces the risk of flipping over. And we're just doing horrible things now. Dump that. We're heating up too much and we're still flipping, but this will be something we can salvage. Yikes, this is so difficult. You know, these things always, you get to play in sandbox and then, hey, it's so easy. And then when you do it like this, it suddenly isn't. But you see now it's very stable. I'm not doing anything at the moment. So I think we'll make it. We're already in space past basically well, still low Kerbal, but let's just keep it like that then. Just can burn off that last little bit there. And ditch that. So this hopefully has enough. It should, yes, 1.22. So I think we'll make it. Probably only barely. Maybe we won't make it. You see, it's dropping too fast. No, so even if you add, no, you can make it still, obviously. 2 plus 800 is 2000 plus 800 is 2800. We only need 2200-ish, so we'll make it. Right. But that is not the most elegant kind of launch where you flip over. You know, in a way, actually, this whole career experience mirrors the evolution of KSP. I was watching again yesterday one of Kurt J. Mack's old KSP videos, And I have to say that is where I discovered KSP. It wasn't through Scott Manley or through the KSP websites or anything like that. It was Kurt J. Mack. I was watching some of his videos. He's still doing that Minecraft thing of his. And so he was doing KSP, and that's when I first saw it. Right, we're there, comrades. Ditch the thing. We've made it into orbit. And yes, so I was seeing that again now yesterday. I was curious to see what was going on his channel again. And so it's so interesting because the early KSP, these vehicles were anyway very difficult to control. So it kind of mirrors that, and then as you progress in the career, it's almost like you progress in the evolution of KSP itself as you get more parts and so on. So we just extend the antennas. Proximo 4 was the ticket, as it turned out. And our lovely craft is now here for the first time, sending out its signals into the cosmos, but primarily down to the ground, so we can get some prestige from this thing. Now we should be hearing beeps occasionally if this thing is working. It's saying no beeps. Let's try that. Anyway, let's do some science. So we've done the mystery goo, as I thought. Then we can just log the pressure data. We've done this as well. I was right, so it was just showing incorrect information in the VAB. Sometimes if you clip things too much, they are difficult to select. Come on, but it doesn't show it there, so it's not going to be necessary. Nope, no value in that. It's the material study, the small living organisms. It's almost like, again, Buzz Aldrin's Space Program Manager, that kind of evolution, which is, again, you start with small living organisms and so on. So this is both Sputnik 1 and 2 combined, in a way. A tragic way, in a kind of sad way, but anyway, material study. So we can imagine there's some small living organisms that are judging us very hard, but they're not coming back home. The microgravity has greatly affected the growth of crystalline structures. Loose objects are also flying around the bay in a very messy but fascinating way. We'll transmit this, just to, you know, par for the course kind of thing. Right, so, and by the way also, I think there's a mod, is it not the restock mod, that changes the science base so that when you look in, you can actually see that kind of octopus creature that we saw in one of the early KSP videos. I think it was the one where they introduced science for the first time. And that is in fact the only other creature that we know exists on this planet alongside the Kerbals. It's that kind of pink octopus creature. So anyway, we can imagine one of them is in here. So that's it. We will return now and see what other missions we can get. We should have completed the contract as well. Right, the stages were of course destroyed. We expect that. Achieve the goal, and we didn't tell the recovery team that you'd be staying in space, so they're still looking. Great job. And of course we get our money back there. I'm just going to have some more tea. And this one is just from the World First Milestones. I like to think of this almost as the official government objectives, because they still give us a lot of money, and this does follow kind of an historical progression. For example, they ask you to do a rendezvous and a docking and so on. So there we go. Destroy, destroy, destroy. That's fine. We'll just go to the tracking station. And we were never here before, so Jean is just saying hi there. Close that. We don't need to see all this. Right, so Proximo 4, I wonder should we just rename the thing? No, we'll keep it as a memory of our initial failure. So Proximo 4 is there serenely going in orbit now, and the people are picking up its transmissions. Now, most of these contracts are here flying around, so obviously for that we'll need an airplane. I don't want to do that yet. Let's just see if there's anything else interesting to take. So you see now this world first thing, it's more like this is the official goals of the space program in a way. The next thing is to return to Kerbal from orbit, so it's a kind of logical, historical progression. So I think we'll do this, but then we're going to do it again with a small living organism kind of thing. So we'll just strap a parachute on the kind of Proximo model that we're using now. Accept that. Let's just see again, it's the escape trajectories, ferry for tourists, suborbit, 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 suborbit. We can take this. I'll do this happily. This will give us a lot of money, and these are just for suborbital contracts. I'll try and design kind of like a small plane to do that as soon as we have the parts, but then maybe we should wait with this. What about this one? But this asks now for the launch to happen at the launch site again. No, I don't want to do that yet. Tourist, I'll take the tourist one. We have no idea how we can complete this contract yet, but we at the Space Center are very confident in our abilities. So anyway, let's design the next rocket. Now this is such an unelegant or inelegant thing. Can we upgrade the VAB? 200, that takes almost all our money. No, we can't do that yet. So I think we're just going to have to try and put some fins onto the stage here. Now at this point we still have again 4 more parts that we can add, so it's not going to help adding more liquid fuel. And we did have enough for the orbital insertion last time. So I think, now again the problem is, we don't need to return this, we don't need to return the thermometer. We're going to skip all of this, because I still need to add a heat shield, of course. So, do that. And most important, let's test the center of mass. It's right down the bottom, so we know it will be a success. And what about the science? We could use the storage unit, but of course in this case I want the living organisms to return home safely. Rest in peace, Laika. And who are the others? Belka and Strelka, I think. Then let's see, parachutes. Now I don't have struts yet, the big ones, but do we want that? 125 kilos. No, we can do without that. We'll use the normal one. Should I clip? Yes, I'll clip this in here. I don't have any gumption of doing that. Although, it's a bit too big. So I think doing this would be the best at the end of the day. Yes, we'll just have to do this the old-fashioned way, I think. Just have them overlap, 2 of them, and when they overlap as close as possible, we just place the one again, and then we should be able to place the parachute, and then I'm just going to move the whole thing up a little. Yes, it's not the most elegant thing, I know. But it works. But of course it shifts the center of mass, so let's move it down a little. Not the whole thing. It has quite a severe impact, so I think actually what I'll do is move it down. Now of course in real life you don't need to put an entire strut into something else in order to get an attachment point, so we will of course pretend that this is not what we're doing here. I just want the parachute, that's all. That's also changing it a little, but we'll put it like that, just so that it doesn't clip completely, and it still has the center of mass more to the bottom than the top. Hopefully, anyway. because of course there's no control here. So yes, that'll be that. Then we'll just use, of course, the antennas. I just want to also get rid of this thing here. I hate when this happens. It's just at the wrong point. So in this instance, we'll just move the whole craft a little bit, and then hopefully we'll get it. Nope, still more. Still more. Ish. There. Well, that's the way it goes, right? So now we can just put this stage back, and let's just see, is there anything more? How are we doing? We still have quite a few parts, so now we can start experimenting, because we just want a little bit of extra thrust. 1.33 is a little low. That means we'll burn most of the fuel of the first stage in the very low part of the atmosphere. So this is a perfect example for the Atlas model again. Stage and a half, although of course we have 2 stages here, so 2.5 stages. But yes, we still can't do the cross feed. Oh well. It'll just be another liquid booster then. Although we don't need to do... but then I can't ditch it. Let me just test something. Enable crossfeed, there it is. So we don't have it on the radial decouplers yet. Interesting, very interesting. Well, we have a solution for that. So I'll just use the tanks. This really does make it more like the Atlas. Then I want a nose cone. Let's not make comments about the shape of the rocket, shall we? How many parts do we need? First of all, I need this. We can move this up a little bit. Actually, no, we'll leave it there. Then 2 of these with the cross feed enabled. Because the thing is now, oh good grief, too many parts now, we'll have to work on that. So nothing I can, we'll just remove the antennas, no other option at this point. But anyway, the point here is, because these tanks are attached, they obviously have a cross feed already enabled, and then we do the same with the decouplers, so that these engines just draw from the central column, but we can ditch them as soon as we start picking up speed. Now we do need to get rid of this. We'll, I guess we'll just take all the antennas off. This doesn't need to transmit messages of peace all around the world. It just needs to come back, so it's fine. Now we can also add more fuel. And we still have 1 more. It's fine. We'll just leave it there. So put all 3 on the first stage. We now have 2.51, which is much better, of course. We can reduce it a little bit more, but I won't do that, just so I have more control. Now, of course, again, we don't have the nose cones there, but anyway, we'll just see how we go. So this is Proximo 5. Save that. Yes. Anyway, let's go. So these early rockets, I'm not saving them in the sub-assemblies because it's constantly changing, so there's no real point to that. But yes, anyway, once we get a design that actually works well, then we will save it. So let's just launch again, comrades. I don't know which unfortunate creatures are in that storage bay now, but good luck to them anyway. They're hopefully coming back. And yes, well, let's go. Not that fast. So we do have a wobble problem. Now again, severe concentration. Yeah. It's around the speed of sound when the problems really kick in, so about you see, around the 300 to 400 meters per second. Then we start to get real problems, just like that. What a shame. Let's just see if we can go up anyway. Yes, now we lose a bit of speed, so the aerodynamic thing, yeah, we can spin our way to orbit, maybe. This is such a shameful display. But anyway, let's be glad it's in the desert so the public doesn't actually have to see how we put the things in orbit. Oh, good grief. No television cameras in the desert, please. And now we've just used it all up anyway. No, revert. This was a test, really. This is just silly. Let's get rid of this whole thing. It doesn't help to have a this kind of configuration anyway, because we burn through the fuel too fast. So let's just ditch this whole thing. Add more fuel. One more at least. I know it makes it even worse, but that's alright. Because we must have these. Now we have 26. Of course I could use the other engine, but there's no point because it will just not have maneuverability. So maybe we'll add another solid stage. I know I'm constantly complicating things more than they need to be, but well. 30 out of 30. Yes, well, we'll leave it like that. It's not, again, the most elegant thing, but let's just see that it works. We'll leave it at Proximo 5. And this time it's... No, we have to revert. I don't want to launch from the KSC yet. No, we're not ready for that. Back to the desert. Alright, let's go. 3, 2, 1. Now we do leave with gusto here, but we should not flip over. And I can actually reduce the liquid engine to save a bit of fuel. I'm just pushing it as far to the right as I can, because it's difficult to steer with a solid engine. But anyway, that will work. We have a slow acceleration, but that will just aid our turn to the 90. And of course it has to obey aerodynamics because of the fins. So finally some progress. Maybe we can save this one in the sub-assembly. Or not. What are you getting at? As the fuel is burnt, of course, the upper stage becomes heavier and wants to flip. And sometimes it fights the fins. But anyway, it's high up enough now to avoid that. So we just have to see where we end up. Yes, for now, again, I'm using the stock telemetry data. We don't need the Kerbal engineer yet. I also turned the UI scale back to 100, just again so we see more of the screen where the action is really happening. So here also we see the Realplume. This is why I wanted it. It doesn't impact performance in any way. Oops, too fast. Don't want to see hitting on the way up. One of my pet peeves. But anyway, just so again the plume looks a bit more interesting and realistic. You know, we don't really care about it because that's not the main focus, but still. And I'm glad they fixed the swivel. The plume used to be inside the swivel, but it's not anymore. And ditch that and ignite. Let's put it a little less. You can see the aerodynamics are still active, but to a very weak degree. And now we get this nice kind of vacuum plume. No, you're not going to turn over. This is not allowed, sorry. Now, of course, I was tempted starting this career to turn off the ground stations so that we have to build a satellite network. But the problem with that is if you want to launch from the desert, then you will struggle with your communications. So obviously that's not the good idea at the beginning. What am I doing? I'm talking and I'm not paying attention to anything. Anyway, I think we'll still be able to do it. This will now go into high orbit. Good grief. It's a good lesson. Anyway, we should still have enough power. First milestone, broken a speed record again, so it's fine. Stage, stage, stage. And once we get to the apoapse, when the meter starts going to the 0 there, since it's locked down here, we'll just burn. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. What's the worst that... don't say that. Not even in irony. And... this is actually a good idea. I'm glad I did it like this, just because now the science will be more meaningful. Right, turn there. We're at the apoapse. Just have to burn very slightly to actually get some... maneuverability here, but we can see we're at the point already. And cut the engine, we're in orbit, and we have more than enough to return. So now our science can actually give us some more data, because we've never done a high orbit experiment. Just want to get this thing out of the way. There. So let's expose the poor creatures to the vacuum of space. Of course, we would not really do that. You just leave them in their capsule like that. But of course, that's not how it works here. So observe. And save that. So I guess we expose like crystals and all sorts of chemicals and so on to the vacuum of space. But the actual creatures are inside there, because obviously they would die when exposed to the vacuum, so we don't really want to do that. Now we do want to bring them back, since we still have power. Let's go around one time. Of course we get close now. Getting some feedback. Everyone is still alive. And I'm just watching the needle there again. Right, we're at the apoapse. So let's begin a retrograde burn. Again, this will be very inexpensive in terms of delta V, because it's at the apoapse. And it's such an elliptical orbit. That's fine. Perfect. Right, separate the thing and we just go home, comrades. Just have to make sure that we have enough charge to open the parachute. Now this was not necessarily the best idea. Close the doors, just because now we're pointing the wrong way, but it was a gradual re-entry plan anyway, so we should have a time to spin around before we start to get hot. Alright, it's fine. Yikes. I have no control at all, so this is not good. See, it is heating the Science Junior, but then it spins and then it cools down again. You can say, come on, don't do this. It has to just settle down. It's getting hotter and hotter on every spin. No. Well, luckily the frequency of the spin is also increasing, so... I think we might... Well, I don't want to speak too soon, but I think we'll make it. Right. Lucky for the occupants of that capsule. So we're burning off a blader. This is of course our first proper orbital re-entry, so now we're really seeing that Werner von Kerman's plan was a good one, to add some kind of ablative material to the bottom of a craft when it re-enters, and indeed it does work, so much to the delight of the poor inhabitants of that capsule. Right, so no control, plasma blackout will continue for the next few seconds, and then we will land, not splash down. Should be perfectly fine. And anytime. There we go, control is re-established with a downlink to the Space Center. Interesting, it's a direct connection. No, it's not, it's through here. The Harvester Massif, appropriately named. I think it's that way. Let's see, can we... Yes, it is, right down there. Now we're still high up. So right now what I'll do is I'll wait till we get to around 10 to deploy. Now I'm deploying the parachute, and now you'll see the real joy of the Safechute mod. I'm time warping, and now I don't have to do anything else. I'm not touching anything. Well, as soon as it deploys, it will drop us out of time warp automatically. Now watch it fail. No, you see there, drops us right out. Then it deploys safely, and then I can just time warp again, and again don't have to worry about anything, because it will stop the time warp just before we hit the ground. Now this kind of beeping is becoming a little too much. Let's make it like that. Make a random as well, please. I don't want the same beep every time. I also have full sets with this. If you look at the collection of different... Anyway, we're gonna land. Let's just wait for that. Drop me out. There we go. And now we just land softly. Beautiful. Now, just to get back to this, where's the samples? No, not mute. Oh dear. Beeps. No, it's somewhere here. I guess it's because we have an automated craft right now. Yes, it must be. Anyway, it should show here somewhere the list of different sound samples and things. I have quite a few, so it should at least make it a little bit interesting. Right, so we finally returned, comrades, with a living creature from space, and let's hope they're not mutated horribly, but anyway, recover the vessel. And it's night, it sounds like. Yes, right. So, it's still the first day. We really should time warp a little bit. Anyway, 47.5 science earned, so not quite a plethora, but many piñatas. So anyway. Right, parts returned, that's not so important. This is not really a lot of money, plethora of money, but anyway. And we should now be able to do more research. We could go for aviation, build a very basic plane. It might not be a bad idea, but I think these kind of fins will probably be the best with a reaction wheel. Yes, I want that. We've seen the importance of that. Then I want this as well. That gives us some of the more fuselage parts, adapters, the launch clamps, struts finally, and some crew cabins we can use for tourism. Or we should go for this. Maybe we'll do this first, because we still want to put a Kerbal into orbit. Right. Let's just see if there's a nice contract for that. Now it goes to the moon, so I will accept this contract because it does expire. So you see it on day 4, so in 3 days from now. Maybe I'll put this back into just deadlines, not just dates. But anyway, so if you don't take this, I don't think it comes back again. So we will accept this in the long run, of course. What was the other thing? Oh yes, the tourism thing. Just want to see if there's anything else here worthwhile. It's all the escape still. No, it's fine. We'll just put a Kerbal into orbit and try to do some more science in high orbit next time. So warp to the next morning, of course. For the first Kerbal in orbit, I think we'll launch from the space center. Probably it's more appropriate now, you know, it requires a bit more support and all of that, and it is more appropriate in terms of our progression. So we can imagine the space center is finished, so the upgrade to the launch pad is done. It's not just a patch of dirt anymore. And I will see you next time, comrades. Have a fantastic day.